Howdy, lieutenants and economists.
The most volatile, evil, disgusting things on the planet, humans. If you have a video request, you can always go to assholeconsulting.com.
Yeah, I am gonna charge you, kids. And that is the importance of not fucking up.
You are such an asshole!
Well, finally, last video for the night. Got a couple more coming. I don't know what the heck. What happened Sunday and Saturday, guys? What's going on, y'all? Hit me. Anyway, so a young man writes. Willie writes. Here we are. Hi, Aaron. I would like to get your opinion on the following. Was Ronald Reagan a good president on social, economic, and foreign policies? Why or why not? 2. Does Reaganomics work? I heard the economy was great during his day. Why or why not? And 3. Ted Cruz makes many references to Ronald Reagan. Would Ted Cruz make a good president? Why or why not? Thank you, Willie. Well, thank you, Willie. So, did a little research here to brush up on Reagan because I know there's my opinion, but then also it's like going back and reevaluating his presidency with eyes that have aged about 30-odd years since the man was president. But let's go in order of your questions here. Was Ronald Reagan a good president? In general, yes. He's the best president we've had, I would say, since Eisenhower. It's been a long time since we had a president like Ronald Reagan. But the man was not perfect by any means. But that's not a very hard hurdle to beat. I mean, when you got Bill Clinton, and that's like probably that's like the second best president you maybe had. It's kind of a low hurdle to beat. But looking more specifically, let's go ahead and take his economics because that's probably what he's most noted for. The more notable economic policies, okay, he lowered taxes, but it's like, okay, well, what taxes and when did he lower it and stuff like that. In 81, 82, he lowered the top marginal tax rates and your capital gains tax rates, which were set very high, going almost all the way back to the Great Depression. Carter had them up there. I think the top marginal tax rate was like 63% for income. And then he also cut out he didn't cut out or create, but he closed up a lot of loopholes as well and kind of expanded the base. So he lowered all these taxes, he lowered all these rates, but he says, okay, enough little special treatment here and there, we're all going to pay taxes. And so what you end up having happen is you had a lot more investment, a lot more rich people come and say, oh, okay, look, now we can actually sell our investments, we can liquidate, maybe I do want to invest in here. And that ended up triggering economic growth. Not to mention increased government revenues. Not to mention the second thing that he's probably noted for when it comes to economics is increased government spending. He has ran the largest deficit since the Great Depression, except for not the Great Depression. I'm sorry, since World War II. So Reagan, he had almost 5% GDP deficits as a percentage of GDP. Under his watch. Not on average, that's as bad as it got. Whereas Obama, he's the worst now, but he blew Reagan out of the water. I mean, it was really bad. I mean, he's almost 10% GDP at his worst year, and then I think maybe now we're finally below 5. I'd have to research it. But that was the second thing Reagan was known for, was his deficit spending. So I think that national debt, which started quite low to begin with, so don't think this sounds worse than what it actually is, but it's not good. I think he almost tripled the national debt. With his government spending. So economic policy in general, good, but we're gonna talk about Reaganomics here because that's one of your questions. It's good because what he's done is he did Barack Obama half that level of spending with lots of tax cuts. So it was a Keynesian stimulus, which I'm against. But it worked for a very interesting reason. We'll get to that with Reaganomics. Social policy, basically. Here, I'm more libertarian, but he really didn't. I like how he cut the education budget by half. That was great. I love it that he's like, no, we're going to do it. So he was kind of hands-off, obviously against abortion, but notably also the war on drugs, which I disagree with vehemently. The amnesty that he granted to all these illegal aliens, that was against. And then not during his presidency, but during governor, he enacted, under California, no-fault divorce. And it's one of those things where I would almost say it's a necessary evil because I believe you shouldn't have to be married to someone if you don't want to be. Beforehand, you had to have some kind of reason. It was adversarial divorces, where like someone violated a contract or did something to you, beat you, cheated on you, and then you could get a divorce. But no-fault divorces, you don't need it. You guys just, for whatever reason, there's no fault, you're just getting divorced, or irreconcilable differences as it goes. So, whereas that's fine for the parents, it just allowed a ton. That's where the baby boomers decide to come in and just say, let's have a divorce party, yay, fuck the children. So, that is a bittersweet aspect of his social policy. Foreign policy, hell yes, awesome with foreign policy. He showed down the communists, he defeated communism, he destroyed the evil empire, and it was evil, known as the Soviet Union. I like the fact that he did either directly or indirectly or unknowingly killed a bunch of fucking commies down in our hemisphere down south. I don't care about that. Vive Pinochet. And he showed down Iran. So he was very strong with foreign policy. Kind of imagine a Vladimir Putin. Okay, so then for your next question, does Reaganomics work? Well, by definition it did, because unemployment went down. We got out of the what was another great recession, that malaise known as the Jimmy Carter administration, going, well, even before Jimmy Carter, going from like 73, 74 oil crisis to 1982 when we finally got out of it, like 9 years of bullshit. And then GDP grew, stuff like that. So, yeah, you heard the economy was great. It was awesome, man. It was great being a kid during Reagan. I remember just being piss poor in the 70s and the early 80s, and then Reagan came to election, and all of a sudden, like, we had an Atari 2600. We could afford Pepsi. My stepdad bought us Pepsi, like a full can. We didn't have to share it with anyone. What else? I mean, you just knew it was better. It was, the fashion got better. Now, a lot of these things have nothing to do with Reagan, but it was great being a kid in the 80s. It was wonderful. Movies, you didn't have Clockwork Orange. You had The Goonies and fucking Indiana Jones. It was fucking tits, all right? So the economy was great. Reaganomics did work, but at the cost of running a huge deficit. But let us talk about Reaganomics, because here's the interesting thing between Reaganomics and standard Keynesianism that happened today. The whole idea, not the whole idea, but the difference between Keynesian economics under Reagan and Keynesian economics under Obama is that Reagan didn't hate rich people, Reagan didn't hate white people, Reagan didn't hate America, and Reagan wasn't a fucking socialist. In other words, he built trust with those who were investors, producers, and rich people. And no matter how much you hate those three people, they're the ones that create jobs and create economic production. Obama has scared the hell away of it. Now, Obama has more or less left taxes kind of untouched. But he has gone with spending, which is nothing more than deferred taxes. And Obama, through no confusion or ambiguity, has made it clear he does not like businesses. He does not like rich people. He probably is a racist, especially if you look at who he's hired. I mean, he puts his hiring is an affirmative action plan in terms of his cabinet and people he puts in charge. You would have a proportional representation based on race. He's gone full, barely any white people around. And he's just he doesn't hide it. This guy he's a socialist. He's a socialist. So this is why Medtronic left. This is why rich people are going offshore. This is why you have capital flight. I'd love to see what happens with Sanders and Hillary. So whereas you could both say were the policies that were enacted in terms of economics were Keynesian, deficit spending. Taxes weren't lowered under Obama, but they're kept the same, more or less. And Reagan did lower taxes a lot, but then also did a lot of government spending, so he had these huge debts. Reagan actually gave faith and confidence enough into the investing in business classes to say, okay, while this guy is here, we can bank on our taxes not going up 90%, them not confiscating our assets, them not regulating the hell out of us, not having us go through all this regulatory bullshit. So that was kind of like, okay, finally, it's okay to work hard now and be successful. It's all right to be rich. It's okay to work hard. And that kind of, so it is that faith that was the psychological boost that resulted in, easily twice, I almost want to say 3 times the average annual growth rate of GDP growth under Reagan versus Obama. But I'd have to double check, but it's definitely been, I'd say it's twice, around 200% or 100% more economic growth under Reagan than it was Obama. Now, the problem, though, with Reaganomics, aside from the massive deficit spending and national debt, is that it's got this negative connotation because Reaganomics was this thing called Trickle-Down Economics. This is the final thing I want to address with the Reaganomics stuff so we understand it. People always trickle down, so you cut income or cut tax rates to the rich people, and then all the benefits will trickle down to the poor people because the rich people will invest, they'll buy more stuff. You buy a new car, that will help employ the union guy over in Detroit, and then he goes and buys clothes for his kids, so that helps out the clerk people, checkout people at the clothing store. And it's somewhat misleading because it's not trickled down. There's no gravitational pull in economics. There's zero gravity. It should be called zero gravity economics. Because even, let's say you cut taxes to the poor, well, that's going to benefit everyone above them as well because the poor would then spend more money buying clothes, employing middle-income people and poor people. But then the profits, if there is any left over, the dividends, the increased profits, would go to rich people, disproportionately because they own more stocks than poor people. So what I don't like about Reaganomics or trickle down is it's classist. It indicates like, well, it only goes this way and you have to do it. It's like, no, you cut taxes to any group of people, it's going to benefit everybody because everybody is interchanged, or not interchanged, but intertwined and has to interact with other people. That we are interdependent on one another in this economy. So if any segment of the economy gets a tax break, boom, that does help. The thing, though, with Reaganomics, and typically it doesn't even have to be Reaganomics, but any modern-day Western civilization, is it almost has to be trickled down, or classical Reaganomics, because the vast majority of taxes are paid by rich people. And that's the problem, where we can cut taxes to the poor people, but truthfully, the poor don't pay taxes. They really don't. Not when you get your tax refund and everything like that. And let's say you went low middle income, they're paying a little bit of tax. Well, that's not going to be this huge economic boom if all of a sudden you cut taxes by 5% to the poorest fifth of society. There might be a little bit of an economic growth, but nothing major. If you want really big economic growth, you got to give really big tax cuts to the economy. And unfortunately, the majority of the taxes are paid by rich people. And it might seem unfair and unjust, but you know what? They've been saying it's unfair and unjust. They pay disproportionately. I'm talking beyond what their income is. That's what the concept of progressive taxation. So the only way you can really get an economy to boom is you're going to have to give large tax cuts to rich people. That's the only way you really can do it, and you could try and blow all the money you want on programs and this and that like Obama did, but obviously that hasn't worked. So what ends the misnomer you don't want to fall for is trickle-down economics, because it truly makes you misunderstand economics because of the interdependent nature that everybody has within the economy. But given our current tax structures of most Western nations, and that it is hugely lopsided towards the rich paying the vast majority of taxes, if you want to cut taxes and have significant economic growth, you're just going to have to cut taxes to the rich. That's it. And then cut government spending if you don't want to run deficits. But I know we don't like to do that because teachers who don't do shit anyway. Sorry, Ted Cruz makes many references to Ronald Reagan. Would Ted Cruz make a good president? Why or why not? Well, I left that. I did not research because that sounds like a Clarey Test. And that's how I judge. Oops. That's how I judge political candidates. So let's look up Ted Cruz. I know I don't like the fact once I found out his wife was fucking Goldman Sachs whore. That right there will weigh, even though normally we don't concern ourselves with your spouse. That is going to weigh negatively, in my opinion. Did my internet go down? Is it just going to be another fuck-up day with a bunch of IT fucking nerds? Oh, we finally decided to load up. Thank you, John. All right, Raphael Edward Ted Cruz, 1970. And before we go any further, let's remember what the Clarey Test was. Do you come from rich parents? Did you major in a worthless degree? Have you worked in the private sector? Are you currently working in the private sector? Okay, you want a low score. Every one of these that you get a 1 to, or you answer yes to, you get a point of 1, and that's bad. You want a score of 0. Cruz graduated from Princeton, 1992, went into law school. 1993. Cruz was the director of the Office of Policy Planning at the Federal Trade Commission. All right, so this fucker never worked in the private sector. He's been public sector the entire time. One major point against you, Ted. In the United States, apparent investment advisor, attorney general. Red for okay, and then he's been there ever since. So too, he's never worked in the private sector, and he's currently in the he's currently in the public sector. Guy's a career fucking politician. You wonder why Trump's doing so well? Early family and life. So let's find out what he did. Oh, he was a Canadian. Calgary for 3 years, working in the oil business. How does that work? I thought we couldn't have foreigners be. Later, his parents were going to born in Cuba. Wait, Cruz's father was born in Cuba. 3/4 Irish said. Okay. At the time, they lived in Calgary, were working in oil business as owners of a seismic data processing firm for oil drilling. I'm the son of 2 mathematicians and computer programmers. Oh yeah, he comes from rich parents. Okay, so you come from rich parents too. This sucks for him. I was kind of like, yeah, he'll be an okay president. He'll be better than Obama, which is maybe now true because he's almost got a perfect score like Obama. And then education. What was his undergrad? Oh, Cruz attended 2 private high schools. Well, aren't you fucking... Oh, in Katy, Texas. I ran through there. That is a rich area. Graduated valedictorian 1988. He graduated Kuma. Bachelor's of Arts in Public Policy. This cocksucking motherfucking piece of shit. This is majoring in political science. This guy has had no intention of ever working a real job. I hate him. Now I hate him. I hate this guy. This guy's got a perfect score, which is the worst score you could possibly have. Ted Cruz has a score of 4 on the Clarey Test. So no, I don't think he'd make a good president. Now he could. There's always this, he could finally get his head out of his ass and actually, but no, based on experience, based on people like him, based on people who declare not just worthless degrees, but egotistical degrees. This guy at the age of 18 thought that he should be a politician. He should tell other people what to do. Do you want this person to be in your life? Do you want this person to be president of the United States? Then he never works a real job. He currently doesn't work a real job. And he comes from rich parents. So, no, Ted Cruz, I don't think would make a good president. We'll find out if he gets there, but no, I don't think he would. So, anyway, hope that answered your questions. Hope you learned that Ted Cruz is not fucking Ronald Reagan. Look up Ronald Reagan's background. It's a little bit more humbling. But yeah, this dude, especially with his wife working at Goldman Sachs, oh yeah, these guys have been sucking cock and kissing ass their entire... That's what they do that's their profession. They're career ass kissers and cocksuckers. That's what they are. So, anyway, best of luck to you. Toodles.